Hey, everybody. Welcome back to episode 134. We are in the middle of a 10-part series of, let's see, we're going to do 10 steps, right? And this is step 7. So, again, if you have not listened to all of the other 6 steps, I encourage you to go back, listen, start from one, sequentially listen to each one from there, and get to this spot today, step 7. And today we're going to be talking all about podcast launch strategy. Uh, we have been talking about last week just getting comfortable with the mic. And because we talked about getting comfortable with the mic and pressing record, this week we're going to be talking about, okay, now what do we do with those recordings? How do we successfully launch a podcast? What are those things that have been working for people? What doesn't work for people? And really, I want you to succeed in getting your podcast heard. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of how I would coach you if you were sitting in front of me. And again, every podcaster is going to be different in their approach, but I'm going to share with you what has worked with my clients over the years and what is working right now in 2024 so that you can have that successful launch in the fall. So this is real meaty. And again, like I've said in every episode, I would love to sit down one-on-one with you and figure this out with you. Again, we have those one-on-one podcast launch packages together. We also have the podcast boot camp online that you can self-pace, go through an online course and do it yourself. It's a little bit more in depth than what we're talking about today, but I am pretty much giving away most of what I talk about inside of the online boot camp today, because I think this is really important to launch out of the gate with gusto. So, all right. So the key elements of a successful podcast launch is you want to make sure that you are well prepared, that you have batched enough recordings. And what I mean by batched is you have recorded enough episodes that you have a cushion. I really recommend to be at least 2 weeks ahead. That way you don't have a like a energy about you where you're like, oh gosh, now I have to record. So making sure that you have batched enough recordings, and we'll talk about what that looks like specifically as we keep going. And here's something that I recommend a lot of podcasters to do is that you launch with 3 episodes. And the reason why you launch with 3 is you create a binge factor. So if you think about a Netflix series that comes out, and there's only one show, like old school, where you had to wait a whole week for the next show to come out. But they will release like 4 or 5 episodes or even 10 episodes at one time to create this binge factor that you just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. In the world of podcasting, if you start with 3, you've got your like foundational podcast episode, and then you've got the meat and the meat. So you've now created a rhythm for people to hear your cadence, and now they're ready for that next one on the following week that you release or the next week. You want to make sure that you're building up momentum right out of the gate. I want to help you set up well. So that's a big portion of what you're not going to find here on this recording of this episode. But if we were working one-on-one, I would literally make you get out your calendar and start to backtrack of how many and what days do you need to record to be in a place where you have those 3 that you can launch, and then you're also 2 weeks ahead. All right. So with that, we want to make sure that we are creating a timeline and a marketing plan moving forward. So you've got to decide on a launch date. What date do you want to release? And we talked about this a little bit at the very beginning, in step 2, I believe, where we talked about, okay, what day of the week works best? And it's whatever day works best for you is the day that you should launch. So if you know that you're in meetings all day on Mondays, you won't even think about the podcast, then I would not recommend a Monday. Maybe it needs to be a Tuesday. If you are a Business, I would recommend that you would be Monday through Friday. That is more commonly listened to during the week. Obviously, from business, like you're just in the business mindset. So just keep that in mind. Now, picking a launch date, like I've said almost in every episode, you want to make sure that you're launching in one of the higher times of listener rates and download rates, which is in fall or January, February, March are typically the highest downloads during the year. So you're going to go look at your calendar. By the time you're listening to this, I believe it'll be middle of July. So look into September or October, pick a date, and you're going to say, okay, by September 15th, I want to launch 3 episodes and have 2 more that are already recorded. So that means I need to record episode 1 through 5 and have all of that ready, including my intro and outro that we talked about last week and a trailer, because your trailer is going to go out first as soon as it's done being edited and it's ready to go. So there's a lot of people that will batch record, like 10, 12 episodes, like a series. If you think about, oh man, I had one client do this where she recorded 20 interviews and before even the launch of her podcast. And then that way she was ready to go for the whole next 20 weeks. I mean, that's a lot of podcasts that are ready to go. But I will tell you, it always makes for a more creative process and being present as they get out or released. I will say the only drawback of doing more than like a couple of weeks ahead is that you have to be intentional about going back and listening as a podcaster. If you're creating the social media or the buzz or the newsletter around it, you want to make sure that you remember what you said on that podcast episode. So if you plan to release again those 3 episodes, say September 15th, you're going to want to make sure that on your calendar you have selected days where you are batch recording or writing or pressing record and making sure it's edited by a team or you before your launch date. Now we're going to move into more of the marketing side of podcast launch strategy. So I always give this example of Thanksgiving. If you were to think about how much work it takes to build a Thanksgiving meal, a turkey, to make this whatever sides that you want, sweet potato casserole, green bean casserole, mashed potatoes, salad. Oh my gosh, this sounds so good. Whatever else that you have, pies. If you made this huge feast and then you just assumed people were coming, nobody knew that you were doing it. You might have talked about it here and there, like, oh, I might have a Thanksgiving meal, but you actually never invited them. You miss an opportunity of inviting people to the table to experience being with you, of experiencing what you have to offer, of tasting and seeing what you're bringing to the table. So, with marketing and creating buzz around your strategy of launching, you're going to have to tell people. That means some of you might have to get uncomfortable and get on social media and start talking. Some of you are going to have to talk about it with friends that you're with. Some of you are going to start to talk about it with your family or within your Facebook group. Maybe you have a whole Facebook group, a community, a huge community that would be supportive. And you have this amazing opportunity to let them in to pre-launch time, which is a huge benefit as a podcaster. If you already have a Facebook group, then I highly encourage you to go inside your community group and share your podcast is coming, and then asking who would like to be on your launch team. This is really cool how I've seen people want to help you. I've seen it multiple times, probably dozens of times, where if you put out on your Facebook page, group, personal profile, Instagram, where you say, hey, I am looking for a launch team. I'm looking for 10 people to be on my launch team. You will get people to support you. I promise you, if you have something that is really speaking to a pain point and you have a solution for, my friend, you're going to have people that are like, yes, I want to help bring this into the world and support you. Maybe they don't even know your content quite yet, but they know you and they want to support you because they love you. And this could be family, this could be friends, this could be your church community, a small group, not just Facebook group. Just look at the people around you that you know would help you to start talking about your podcast. Now, what they do as a launch team is up to you. Maybe it's you send them out a post to put onto their Facebook page promoting your podcast on launch day. Maybe they listen to your podcast episodes beforehand and go and leave you a review on your Apple Podcast or Spotify before your podcast is actually live. That's another, I talked about this in a previous episode. The benefit of having a podcast trailer is that people can listen to that and then leave a review right away. And that creates buzz around that too. And then also what you could do is you could have like your core people that you know are physically going to text to other people on your release day, but you could also have other people that are inside of your Facebook group or community group, whatever, wherever you decide, that they can be entered into a giveaway if they screenshot their review and show it to you. And you could do, $25 gift card to Amazon, or extravagant $100 to Amazon, or coffee, or whatever. I would definitely give something tangible away, maybe not a free coaching or anything like that, only because people really love a tangible gift card. So I'm just going to put that out there. So giveaways are great. You have people listen, take a screenshot of the review that they leave on your release day, and that will help really get your podcast up and going on like Apple's new and noteworthy. I have a friend of mine who recently just launched a podcast, and she had over like 100 something reviews, and she made it to the new and noteworthy. So that is pretty awesome. So there's that for as far as like launch strategies. It really comes down to planning well and telling people about it. The old adage of if you build it, they will come. It just does not work with podcasting unless you have like a million followers on social already. It's just not going to organically be there right off the bat. You have to go out and ask for help, ask for people to share, ask for people to leave reviews to help you get it out there, to be aware of it. And also join podcasting communities, not just podcast coaching for female entrepreneurs on Facebook. You can certainly go in there. But there's so many out there, like Christian podcasters and She Podcasts, and there's so many opportunities for you to get plugged in as a podcaster. So don't forget to check Facebook for those free groups that you can show up in. And then the last little things too is tips and tools on podcast launch strategies is hire somebody. If you're like, I really want to do this well, hire a podcast launch strategist. And that is one of my titles. I love doing these little strategy calls with people. I think it's really important to show off your hard work. This is like, I can compare it to writing a book where you have taken time and effort to craft this podcast, your voice into the world, and you want to make sure that you're launching well. And so hire somebody. If it's not me, hire another coach. I can point you to other coaches that maybe you would jive more with. I know plenty. So I can help you with that. Then secondly, if you are not a social media fan and you're like, girl, that's really hard for me, I would encourage you to invest in a social media scheduling platform. There's like Hootsuite, there's Tailwind, there's so many different Buffer, many different, and Meta, of course, with Facebook, where you can just schedule it and be done. You don't have to be constantly checking. You could just have it on your computer. It doesn't even have to be on your phone, making sure that you are promoting the upcoming launch of your podcast. So I've had plenty of people who do like a countdown, like 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, 4 days, or they'll say something big is coming. And then like a week out, they'll say, I want to introduce to you my podcast coming live in 1 week. Be sure to go listen to the trailer, or you can put the trailer on Facebook. There's just so many ideas on how you can launch successfully, depending on what your business is, who your community is, are, and how you want to present that moving forward. Another option too is I have had a podcast. I have had a podcaster launch client who did a Dropbox of her episodes. I think she did 3 episodes inside of there. And then she had people write reviews to her. And the people could leave reviews on Apple, but she received the testimonials and then she made graphics and posted those on social media as a teaser coming up to her release of her podcast. So there's that. Those are some ideas for you. I would encourage you, if you are wanting a little bit more, to book a discovery call with me on really navigating some strategies. I do 15 minutes for free. Otherwise, you can book an hour call with me and we can come up with a strategy to help you launch your podcast well and successfully, because I want people to hear you, like I said, and hear it with gusto right off the bat. All right, next week, we're going to be covering step 8, which is done for you versus done with you, or versus DIY. So which one do you do after episode 1, and how to make that decision for yourself as you move forward as a podcast host. All right, take care, you guys, and happy launch.